Thank you for joining us today. I am Nina Newman. I am the Director of Admission and Financial Access here at King School. And we're really excited to talk to you about our academic program for grades 6 through 12. As many of you may know, we are a pre-K through 12 school, but that would take way longer than your lunch. So we decided to break it up into two groups. Today we're doing 6 through 12, and then on Thursday we'll do a lower school session on academics as well. So hopefully this will be really helpful for those of you who are more focused on 6 through 12 or who are just looking to get a head start. I am joined today by three awesome colleagues, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you and tell you sort of about their role. And then we're going to open it up into Q&A pretty quickly so that we can make sure that we make the most of your time with us today. So Marnie, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Marnie Sedlusky. I am the head of upper school here at King. I also have the honor of serving as the pre-K through 12 strategic planning coordinator. It's really a sort of a fancy way of saying that I keep an eye on strategic programs that the school has been focusing on across all three of our divisions. We are a pre-K through a 12 school, as Nina mentioned, and it is an absolute pleasure to be able to see the through line in some of our strategic programs and see how they culminate in our upper school as well.
Thanks, Marnie. Jenna?
Hi, I'm Jenna Dupuis. I am in the math department, so I teach math both in the middle school and in the upper school. And I'm also the middle school math coordinator, so I get to work with the middle school math teachers on curriculum and instruction, and also ensuring that our math program has a nice flow as we go from eighth grade in the middle school to ninth grade in the upper school. So teaching in both divisions, I get to see where the students are coming from and where they need to get to. And it's really great to work with students all the way from sixth grade to 12th grade.
Thanks, Jenna. Lindsay?
Hi, I'm Lindsay Rossler. I wear a number of hats. I am part of the history department in the upper school. I teach in leadership. I also am one of our DEIB coordinators, but I'm excited to talk to you today about my role as the Director of Talent Development in our Department of Teaching and Learning.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to kick it off with a few questions, but for those of you joining us, please feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and we can make sure that we get everyone's questions answered. Marnie, could you just start with an overview of what we mean by inquiry-based learning, especially when we're thinking about grades 6 through 12?
Yes, absolutely. I think those of you who've been out in the educational sphere looking at different schools are probably aware of education ease or specific language that schools often use to talk about their approaches to working with children, different ages and stages. Inquiry-based education is a broad umbrella term that refers to a range of approaches that a school can take that are decidedly student-centered. And by student-centered, we simply mean that at every age and stage, we take what we know about the way in which that age group and indeed that child learns, and we're able to design curriculum around that reality. Inquiry obviously means to ask, to wonder, to ask questions. And so the method for getting teenagers, I'm going to talk to teenagers for a second, since we really are working with ages about 11 on this call all the way through 18, that teenagers really do explore the world through wondering and questioning. And indeed, we never want them to stop doing that. So at King, our approach to teaching and learning, this umbrella inquiry-based approach, allows for the best shot at getting adolescents to be fully engaged in their learning and to not see it as something that is a passive activity, but as something that their brains are actually going to be coming to, and that they themselves, with all their passions and worries and concerns and stresses and all the things that make adolescents, that they're able to come to their education fully. I can speak it in a more granular level later about how our inquiry-based approach applies to our particular approach to teaching mathematics, to science, to literature, to history, to the arts, etc. later if people have specific questions, but it is an overarching approach that we believe is very powerful and is deeply honoring of those different ages and stages of adolescence.
Thanks, Barney. Jenna, could you give an example of what inquiry-based learning looks like in a math class? I think sometimes we can picture it in science,
Hmm.
maybe even in humanities, but tell us a little bit what that looks like in your classroom.
Absolutely. I can give you an example from the middle school and in the upper school. So, in a geometry class that I'm teaching in the middle school, we started the year off by talking about distance and midpoint, looking at the coordinate plane. And so, while a lot of classes, in fact, when I was in school, we were given this is your midpoint formula, this is your distance formula, now let's use them. And it was all about memorizing and applying. Instead of doing that, we give the students a problem and something that they know how to do, and they use previous skills to actually develop those formulas themselves. So we talk about when you're on a test, if you're using these formulas enough, you will memorize them. But sometimes we get to a test and everything we have memorized just goes away. So what's really important is to understand where they're coming from, and you can develop these formulas on your own and still be able to do these problems successfully. So in the middle school, it looks like that. In the upper school, actually, today in an honors calculus class, we were starting to introduce the idea of instantaneous rate of change. We were doing average rate of change, and now we talk about how do we get a more accurate rate of change and decreasing our time intervals. So looking at having students again start with the pre-calc knowledge that they have, tackle some problems that they're able to do with their prerequisite knowledge, and then start developing different calculus concepts. So again, instead of just memorizing, here's a formula, here's how we take the derivative, and that's it. Where are these coming from? And then not only is it less about memorizing, but they actually understand what they're doing. And then when they tackle problems that involve more critical thinking, such as word problems, they actually have some context and they are able to pull on the correct formulas because they understand where they're actually coming from.
Great examples. Thank you. Lindsay, can you talk a little bit about how we approach gifted education at King and your title of talent development?
Yeah, so I love that title because it speaks to the approach that we have, which is really school-wide enrichment and helping every student, every child develop their strengths to the best of their abilities and to help sort of ameliorate weaknesses. So what that might look like, or what that does look like in the upper school, um, in just like application is, for example, we have an enrichment opportunities database where students can go, and if they are interested in a particular discipline or activity or have a passion, and sometimes students really do need more than what we provide in our classrooms, even though what we provide is tremendous. A student might really want to do an internship in finance or volunteer at a local historical society, or right, there's any number of opportunities. And so we've created a space where students and families can look and see what's in their field, what's in their location, and open to them. So I love sort of that broad approach. We have a mentorship program that we've been running the last 5 years where students, one of the best approaches I think for this age group is to get experience in the field. That's a real, like all the research supports that, that when students need more, they really benefit from field experience. And so King is a community of lifelong learners, and we have a wonderful alumni community. And so we match students in their junior and senior year with alumni who are working in a field of interest, and they build a relationship and have meetings throughout the year through a class. We offer this as a class. So it's not for every student, but students have the opportunity to take this class, and then they are matched with an alumni and work on networking and skill building. And sometimes that does then translate into internships or sort of going to shadow for a day. And it's really been a fantastic way to have alumni come back, and also for our students to really learn beyond the classroom. we've had opportunities for students to have really meaningful internships during their senior project time, but also we've started to think about that as in the summers and trying to integrate that kind of experience more. And then we have a peer tutoring program as well, where students learn from me and from a colleague of mine how to help support other students in certain domains, which actually helps support learning for both whoever is being tutored and the peer tutor as well. And that's another way to sort of provide enrichment. So those are some examples. I also work with teachers on ways to be able to tell if there's a student who might need more than what is going on in the classroom. And so I work with my colleagues to try and make sure that, I mean, we know every student here, but I love being able to work with teachers and students to make sure that every student is going just as far as they can go.
I just want to jump into and point out that from an inquiry-based approach to teaching and learning, having programs such as the ones that Lindsay just mentioned are a no-brainer. I mean, you want to make sure that kids are allowed to ask the questions that they want to ask and pursue them at the deepest, most rigorous, broadest, I'm using lots of, adjectives here, level possible. Please know that, by the time a student gets to high school at King, no two students have the same schedule. We are really proud of both the depth and the breadth of our academic offerings for all of our students in the upper school, and are really committed to making sure that our program, while grounded in the liberal arts and sciences, does so in a way that differentiates and meets all learners, including our most, high flyers, if you want to call them that. We believe that all of our students have gifts that should be developed, and our framework provides for that.
So Marnie, keeping with that theme, a little bit of the schedule, especially in the upper school, we have a lot of different levels of classes. Can you just explain sort of how we think about creating a schedule that will work for the student where they are challenged and not overwhelmed?
Yeah, so, we definitely are not a plug and play academic and otherwise school, which means we have a very complicated scheduling process. It is blissfully handled by brilliant people who love to get in the weeds and figure out how to give students these unique personal schedules that help them scratch their itches while also scratching our itch, right, of making sure they walk across that stage at commencement fully prepared to take advantage of everything their college and university experience will be providing for them. So we do have a range of levels of courses within the traditional domains. In the middle school, Jenna can certainly elaborate on this. We have 3 to 4 different articulations of different levels of a pre-algebraic thinking, algebraic thinking, and then geometry type courses, as well as a number theory course that we offer for students who, again, are really, their numeracy is just really off the charts. Like we definitely offer programs for those kids as well. In the high school, in mathematics, history, the social sciences, the sciences, we have advanced arts. We have advanced courses available in both the category of honors and also advanced seminars. In 9th and 10th grade in the humanities, you're looking pretty much at a college preparatory experience in which teachers will differentiate, and you can ask me more questions about that later, but also honors courses in history. As you move into 10th grade, we do have the advanced placement program here at King. We like to say at King that the advanced placement program is a level that we offer in addition to our own very rigorous interpretations of other subject areas. So for example, we offer advanced seminars, which is our equivalent of a college level course in areas that go well beyond the AP. And those are courses in genetics, in philosophy, in advanced research techniques, in a number of other areas. And certainly in mathematics, we have students taking linear algebra or multivariable calculus. These kids could be sophomores, they could be seniors. So Nina, your question, obviously, I could talk for hours. Our schedules want to be able to capture the nuance of a student's abilities, where they need to be challenged, where they want to grow and fly, both in terms of where they should be and where their interests are taking them. And as such, we need to determine how to make sure each year, indeed each semester, we have semester courses as well as full year courses, matches with all of their needs and all the different subject areas that we offer. Nina, tell me if I should, say more about a particular angle of our approach to scheduling and student program.
No, I think that was a great way to jump in. And Jenna, did you want to add to some of the math offerings?
Absolutely. So, starting in the middle school, as Marnie had mentioned, we have multiple levels at each grade. So, we take a look at students when they come in. We look at what their exposure to math has been in their previous school. We do look at some testing. We look at what their previous teachers, what their comments might be, report cards. We have students take a placement test. And so, we'd like to get a really whole picture of the student before we place them when they come into the middle school. And the same holds for students entering in the upper school as well. Um, in the middle school in particular, we have anywhere between 2 and 4 different levels of classes that students can be recommended for. So we start typically in 6th and 7th grade working with pre-algebra, and then a typical student will move into algebra in 8th grade. However, as Marnie mentioned, we have a class called ANTAP, which is Algebra, Number Theory, and Probability. And that's for students that are recognized in 6th grade as both being very strong in math, but also very curious in math too. So they have the strength, but they also are really interested in the material. And those students are recognized in 6th grade, and they take an algebra class either online or over the summer at our summer institute going into 7th grade, and then they can take the algebra, number theory, and probability class as a 7th grader. That class is typically a quite small class, anywhere between 4 and 8 students, because again, we want students who are strong and interested, and that's taught by the head of the math department. And then upon successful completion of that class, I teach an honors geometry class for 8th graders. So typically honors geometry at our school is taught in 9th grade in the upper school. But again, this is for students who have done the ANTAP class as a 7th grader, and then they can take honors geometry as an 8th grader. And depending, about a student's path, whether what grade they're coming into King, at what point they might all of a sudden discover like math is a passion of theirs. If that doesn't happen in 7th grade, we have students who are in 8th grade who take ANTAP as well, and then go on to honors geometry in the upper school. And then in the upper school, all of our courses, we have algebra for those students who need algebra as 9th graders. We also have geometry, and then all the way up through calculus, AP Calc, multivariable, differential equations, linear algebra. It really depends on where a student is. And so some students, they start their path in 6th grade and they continue on a steady flow through 12th grade. And then other students take advantage of summer opportunities that we have. Our summer institute offers a lot of math classes. So some students will take classes to review, and a lot of students take it to get ahead or to preview, and therefore they can go a bit further in their math track. So we have a lot of movement for students because every student comes into their strengths at different times in their lives and comes into their passions at different times as well. So that way there, as Marnie said, we don't have just one schedule that multiple students have. We have students constantly moving around within the math so that we can meet them where they are and where their interests are as well.
I also want to say that we often talk about the curriculum as if it only happens in the course selection process. And to Jenna's point about not everyone having the same schedule, they also don't have the same activities. So we have students, who are participating in debate, in Model United Nations, who extend their interest in mathematics through the Math Assistance Club or our very competitive math team. We have a group of kids, obviously who are interested in parliamentary debate. That same group of kids might also be involved in Science Olympiad. In the middle and upper schools, we have a number of these programs that we refer to as co-curricular because, quite frankly, a lot of these clubs use that inquiry-based approach to education, the application of actual understanding, and how we engage ourselves as learners. The kids don't go, oh, I'm in Model UN, I'm not learning anymore, I'm in a club. They're studying, they're really pushing their cognitive and intellectual capacities at whatever age and stage they're at. And we are very proud at King that our rich opportunities outside of the classroom are both driven by the curriculum in the classroom and also complement the work that the students are doing in the classroom.
Thank you, Marty. That's a really good point. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't give a couple of minutes to some of our signature programs, the Aspire program and also the Tom Main Humanities Fellowship. Marty, do you want to do Aspire? Lindsay, do you want to tackle the Tom Main Fellowship?
Yeah, the Aspire program is the name of our signature research program in the sciences here at King. It begins in 10th grade with an application. We try to treat this the way you would if you were in college and you were applying to work in a particular lab. At our school, the 10th graders apply to work in Dr. Schulman's lab, if you will. And she, in turn, if they're accepted, teaches them the basics of upper level science research. Obviously, we emphasize research in all of our science classes, but this particular focal point takes it, to a pretty dramatically high level. The kids are then placed in labs at Yale New Haven at the WHO lab there, Weill Cornell, in different private industry labs, and they are taken on literally by these professional labs and work on research projects in areas of interest that the students themselves have. So it's a pretty remarkable program. We graduate students, usually about 12 students per year are graduating from the Aspire program, having started again as 10th graders. And it is for students who really want to spend their summers in a lab, who really want to do that directed research experience with top-end equipment, both here on campus and also obviously in the labs to which we connect them. That program, the Aspire program, as a signature program, is supported by, of course, our commitment to research as a school, more generally speaking. The kids could never be in a program like this in their sophomore year had they not had rich, really lovely experiences learning the scientific method and other approaches to asking good questions in the world of science and learning the technical skills that they need to get there. These courses are also open to other kids. Our research courses that the Aspire kids are in are also open to other students. So you can not do the whole Aspire program, but still take advantage of some of the elements of that particular signature program. So we're pretty excited. We also, I know Nina, you didn't ask me this, but we also have a club that is a very academic one that supports our frog research project, where the students have been over the last 8 to 10 years, frankly, building Vivaria that then eventually hosted an endangered species of frogs, which we were able to breed on our campus successfully. And we now have partnerships with major museums and aquariums throughout the New England area and, over towards the Midwest. So we're very excited about that program as well. So lots of signature programs in the sciences, the Aspire being our big one.
So in humanities, we have the Tom Main Fellowship as our big sort of signature. And similar to what Marnie was saying, students apply in their 10th grade year and they form teams and they apply to investigate a question of concern in the world today. So I've advised the last 4, I think, or 5 of these pairings. And so they have an advisor like me who helps them along their journey. And they are encouraged to do like a formal lit review, like an academic lit review in the summer following their selection as fellows. They do a lit review. They work on the research process. Topics have been the Ukraine war and the economics of that. It's been exploring neo-fascism. It's been looking at gender and comparative looks at cults. We have a big umbrella of sort of major topics students can choose from, and then because they are doing this academic scholarly process, they have this sort of big question, whether it's about gender or war or fascism, and then they have to do the research to then, focus their questions and their research. And then one of the very cool parts of this fellowship is that students are then encouraged to go travel to investigate the topic. So this year we have students who are going to travel to Vietnam and Arizona to look at food insecurity and water insecurity, and they've been going and interviewing people for their primary sources and doing their lit review and working with their advisor. And at the end of the process, in the middle of their junior year, they do a presentation to the school, they write an academic paper, and for many of these students who have gone through this, their interest only begins there, it doesn't end there, and many of them have then sort of pursued something about their topic as they've gone into college and beyond. And so it's a really cool process for students who are really engaged in the humanities, and again might need more than what we can do just in our classes. We also have independent studies that happen that help students to go beyond what is in our classroom. So I had students interested in immigration, policy, and history who did independent studies with me last year and then went and presented to our middle school students about what they had learned. And so we do have these other opportunities to really push kids to do more than maybe they thought they could and really fly.
Yeah, I just want to say also to our participants that as an administrator, it's incredibly important for me and for my colleagues, my administrators at the other divisions, that we hire people who are experts in their particular fields of study, right? Who are also experts in educating these different ages and stages. The programs that I described, that Lindsay was describing, the deeper dive into our math program, we can't do what we do here at King without having high flyer, top-notch faculty who have connections to labs, who have connections to industry, who have connections to any area that our students are interested in. So when students are doing research here at King, we don't just say, hey, go, here's some books, here's some primary source materials, go do your thing. They're actually working with people who also have published, who also are working in labs, who also are working in university settings, or like Lindsay herself, who know how to teach students to do a lit review. So we don't just have one person like Lindsay or Vicki Schulman, Lindsay Rossler and Vicki Schulman to do those things. I have 65 faculty in the upper school, plus another 30 in the middle school, who know how to work within their field at an incredibly high level, but to do it in a way that's exciting and relevant to adolescents. So Nina, I just wanted to give a little bit of like who's doing the program or who's facilitating the program highlight there.
That's great. We have a question that is specific about a student who would be coming in 11th grade who's already taken US history and sort of what that would look like. But Marnie, I wonder if you could, as you answer that question, like what would they take if they've already taken US history? We do sometimes have students coming in either in 10th grade or 11th grade who might be out of the regular sequence, and how we sort of help get them on track.
Yeah, so a student who's coming to us in 11th grade is going to get a really thorough review, not just of what history classes they took, but what math classes they were taking, what science classes they were taking, and what English classes, et cetera. And depending on the sending school, right, we may have very similar courses here at King. So for example, a student who comes to us already having an American history course may be interested in our integrated American literature, American history, American studies course to layer on to their previous exposure to U.S. history at their other school. However, we also have other courses, advanced placement courses in, for example, comparative government and politics. They might want to look at an AP course in world history. They may want to look at a number of semester differently leveled electives that are appropriate for them and the level of rigor that they would need to have that are in the social sciences as well. We have philosophy courses at the advanced seminar and college preparatory levels. Lindsay, I'm probably missing about 10 courses some kids will take if they've taken U.S. history and want to do all 4 years of history. We'll take a number of electives.
I've had juniors take my honors or AP
Yeah,
World who have come in. And then, right, there's interdisciplinary courses
yeah,
in history and film. There's any number of, yes, everything Marnie said.
yeah, yeah. Did that kind of get at what you were asking, Nina?
Yep, that's
Well, I
perfect.
mean,
Thank you.
the same kind of individualized program that we put together for our 9s or incoming 10s, we put together for incoming 11s. I think the only thing to point out because we assign college counselors in 9th grade, you also just need to know as a parent of a potential incoming junior that we'd want to hit the ground running with whatever their hopes and dreams were for their university and college experience. So we would get you with the academic dean, we'd get you a college counselor right away and make sure whatever course selections we were recommending in whatever subject area are aligning with the program that you as a family and that your child would be expecting.
Great. And our last question, because I do want to be aware of everyone's time, is about math. So back to you, Jenna. So I think you did a great job of sort of explaining how a middle schooler might go through. But this question is specifically similar to the last one about a student who would come in 9th grade. Who might be talented in math, how would we identify that and make sure that we are helping them achieve their goals?
Sure. So the beginning process is similar to middle school. We do take a look at, the school they're coming from, what class they've taken, and even within just what class they've taken, what that might mean, the different material that they've studied within that course, their grades. They take a placement test, and the first year, especially in 9th grade, we meet the students where they are. So if they need an additional year of Algebra 1, we have them in Algebra 1. If we find that they're quite strong in math and interested in math, that's when we have our honors classes. They might start 9th grade in geometry instead. Really, the first year is meeting them where they are and placing them in a class where they're transitioning into the school well and feeling successful, yet being appropriately challenged at the same time. We also have a class called Math Foundations, which is a minor course. So that is for students that need a little extra support in math, or if they're transitioning in, they might be a strong student, but they might have some gaps in their skills from their previous school that they need to get filled in. So they would take their regular math class, whatever they placed into, and then they would take Math Foundations, and the Math Foundations teacher would know what those skills are that they need to work on, help them to build those skills. So then they might be able to go to an even more rigorous class the next year. Or if the class they're in is already quite rigorous for them, it'll support them in that class. And our teachers are quite talented at recognizing as they get to know their students, is this a student that we think could be pushed a bit more? Is this a student that is at this level right now and we think next year they should be at that level? And then if that's the case, or if students express interest in moving up in their math levels, if they talk to the teacher about that, we can work with the students throughout the year to start preparing them for something more rigorous the next year. So whether it's giving them additional problems to do throughout the year that get at the higher level of thinking, or recommending a class for them to take over the summer so that they can move into a higher level the next year. We really look at every student for who they are to make sure that they're initially placed where they're going to be successful, and then so that they can be pushed to their highest potential.
Thanks, Jenna. And I know you were sort of giving the range of where ninth graders tend to fall in, but if we had a student who came into ninth grade who was ready for Algebra 2 trig or pre-calculus, we're ready to throw them in there.
We absolutely are. And I think that's the really great thing. It's not like ninth grade is geometry year, 10th grade is Algebra 2 trig. It's really where are you as a student ready to go? And we have students in various grades and various courses. So we place them wherever they're ready to be. We have students that are in AP Calc as seniors, and then we have students in 10th grade in AP Calc. It really just depends on what courses they've taken in the past, what they're doing throughout their summers, and what they're comfortable with. So
yeah, and to this point, the students who are younger, who are taking the more advanced math classes, they do have in-person options after they just, if they take BC Calculus for AP BC Calculus, and they're done in 10th grade with that. We're very proud at our school that we have students who can take multivariable calculus and then go on to differential equations or linear algebra and do it in person with really wonderful teachers here, and not sort of get booted to an online world. Although, to be fair, we do have connections with a Global Online Academy and One Schoolhouse here for students who want to scratch certain itches that are niche-y. Again, we want our students to have access to as many different resources and ways of learning as possible. But I do think it's really cool that we're a school that can offer a lot of these, college level courses in person with teachers who sit next to you and are warm and accessible, and may also sit in the lunchroom with you and get to know you in other ways.
Yeah, it's great. We actually, we have our specific classes that we teach every single year. But we also look at, okay, what have our students finished learning this year, and what courses might we need to open up next year, so that everybody's taking something that's going to continue to challenge them, interest them. And we have talented faculty that are able to teach those college level classes. So I think students are really fortunate in that sense.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. This was really ambitious of us to try to cover our entire grade 6 through 12 academic program in a half an hour. But we sort of thought it would just be maybe enough to give you an idea of all the different things we offer. We hope that you will continue to come back to campus. The people on this call, as you can tell, are passionate about what they're doing. They'd be happy to answer your questions, as well as department chairs in other departments too. So please be in touch with the admission office if you want to dive a little bit deeper into some of these topics, and let us know if you have follow-up questions. Thank you to my colleagues for joining us today.
Thank you. Come ask about global studies. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.